I've expressed my interest in the series Undead Unluck since it's pretty much just when it came out. What is this, chapter 17? It's been actually, what is that, like a little over 4 months? Almost 5 months, probably. Crazy how time flies sometimes. But anyway, at the end of the last chapter, big hype stuff came up as we saw like the whole organization is coming to fight this guy Victor, who is the original form of Andy, and it's like such a gap between what we have when the card in his head, like messing with his brain, and the full out version, that they're pretty much two different people. Like even this version like refers to the other one not as like a weakened state or any form of like, oh yeah, me with part of my brain knocked out. He straight refers to him as a different person because of how different they are. But as it were, now it's going to be him versus like what I guess if you count Izumo, what's that? Nine other people? Because it's oh my god, it's 12. I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Is it 10? I don't remember. Either way, a lot of people he's going to be going up against, and out of them, there's a lot of hype around this because they're obviously like the main cast, like the main characters group. And I thought we wouldn't really get to see them all kind of in action for a while. I figured it was going to be a long kind of like stretched out thing, but we are getting some of them, well, really relatively all of them, early, at least in somewhat of a display, which is really cool. I'm pretty hyped about that. I'm pretty hyped about seeing like what these guys are all capable of. I said before, the ones that I'm out of these that I'm excited to see, you have the leader one. Obviously she's like this, she's got this weird helmet and she's a swordswoman, so that's already pretty cool. She's got a pretty odd design, but I mean, she's gonna be like some super crazy sword person, which is obviously like by default pretty interesting. I think anyone can see like, oh yeah, the badass swords person, that's gonna be fun. The gun dude, I think, is probably, at least in my opinion, the most interesting to see, just because I thought he was probably the coolest in the chapter when he was revealed in, because like everybody had to defend themselves against like all of the finger shots that Andy shot at them, and this dude just kind of like ricocheted a bullet and it just knocked it out, like not even looking, just kind of angled it and just ricocheted it off, hit it, and took it out. I thought that was just really badass. And then the little kid with all of like the mechanical parts, I think, is really interesting. But at least as it is right now, we can look at it and just kind of pick our favorites and say which ones we want to see, because we'll probably get that for the next at least one more chapter of just these guys like going at Victor to take out, maybe 2. The dude who has the orbs is actually a lot cooler than I thought, because one of the things that I really liked just in general of laying out this chapter is when he uses his orbs to kind of like connect a laser and cut Victor in half, is that they cut the panel in half. I've always really liked it when authors would do stuff like that, when they decide to kind of like work the panel and work the format of the chapter out, like in its layout, in regards to something happening. Like when they do something with like the panel itself. I liked when Zipman did that. I thought that was really cool. I makes me miss the series a little bit when they would do like the zipper kind of like layering in between the panels to kind of just add a little extra flair. Anything like that, I just think it's fun. I really do like it when authors, do something to kind of like break a little bit away from the standard format for the sake of just making it a little bit more interesting, just adding a little bit extra flair to it. But he's all fighting these guys. He's just trying to figure out what to do. And Victor, for some reason, he tries to go for Izumo. And I'm pretty sure it was in the last one I kept calling her the wrong name, and I think I realized that afterwards that I just kept referring to her as the wrong name. And I was just like, I hope nobody calls me out on it. It's going to be ridiculous, but, whatever. And then we get one of the guys. I don't know this one's name yet. I haven't got the whole organization's names locked down. I know, like, you got Shen and Tatiana. Tatiana just is engraved into my head because she has a really weird layout, and with her like a robot, I'm wondering what that's going to be like, kind of revealed as. And then obviously, what was the Gina was the one, because we saw her actually fight and we got some stuff for her. Like the guy from the first couple chapters in the robot suit. I already forgot that dude. He's not going to be important. But the dude who looks like he's like a dark skinned guy. He's got bandages on. He just reminds me of Kyle from Siren. So I'm just going to pretty much just refer to him as Kyle until I get his name down. Hopefully it doesn't stick. But he seems to be super fast. But at least from what we know so far in Undead Unluck, the character's powers aren't as they're not as plain and straightforward as just like, oh yeah, he's really fast. It's probably going to be something really weird that he's able to manipulate in order to be really quick. Like maybe he messes with friction or something, or momentum, and that's how he's able to like move at high speeds and do these things. Who knows? Obviously, it's going to be a little bit until we find out. What exactly that kind of like results in. I'm guessing all these guys, like the bullet and the sword chick, like the dude with the guns and the chick with the swords, they're probably going to have a really weird explanation of how their power works too. It's going to really be something like, oh, I'm not really using my sword. I'm like messing with space and then, bringing my sword in follow up to it, or something really strange, but badass and easy to understand, but crazy in execution. But after that point, they're just kind of like attacking up on him. You have like characters like this really big samurai guy, and he's apparently just like a big brute. We have the kid with the robotic arms, and he's like shooting lasers. I think his is really interesting because the kid probably looks like he's, I don't know, like 6, but he's like obviously in this organization, so he's got to be really powerful. And the fact he's got all these weird like weapons installed into his body already says, like, okay, he's gonna have something really cool going on with probably what his is. Probably a really sad story, but I mean, I wonder what the trade-off is, because he's clearly got like some super weapons like all like lodged within him, and he's part of this group, so he's got to be pretty commendable, pretty like useful when it comes to this kind of stuff. And then we get the character with the sword, like the sword's leader, and she comes in, the sword's like on fire. And the guy, Victor, calls her, I think it's Juiz or Huiz, I don't know how it's supposed to be pronounced, but got a flaming sword. I'm guessing that's gonna have a little hint on their power, unless that's just the weapon itself. Maybe the tool is what's doing the fire. Who knows? We can't really gauge some of these characters right off the bat. The only thing we know for the powers is they have these tools, and outside of that, like, we don't know what exactly like their powers are going to pertain to. It's a little bit harder than if we say or read like reading something like Black Clover, and the characters generally have magic, and then you can get hints like, oh, well, this guy's using this ability, so he must have this kind of magic. We don't know the entire structure yet for Undead Unluck's powers. I mean, we know somewhat of it, but it isn't at a point where we can kind of just like look at something, okay, we think we can figure this out. It's too weird. I mean, look at Regina, who I did like how they said, like, if Gina was here just because of the way her power is, this would be pretty easy of taking this guy down. And it just shows that some of the characters like powers are in huge counter kind of work towards each other, which it's a good thing they took her down. Well, I mean, in his case, it's a good thing they took Gina down, because otherwise she would have ended this probably a lot quicker. I am curious to know if like any of these guys were going to get like an explanation on how their powers work before this is over. I'm hoping at least one of them out of them we could get some like, oh yeah, my power is blank, and maybe not like a full drawn out explanation, but just one of them saying like, oh yeah, you know how I work in in this thing. And I don't know, I think it'd be pretty cool, like any of them really. But I would hope at least out of the 3, the high hopes is out of the 3 that I said, you had the gun dude, the sword chick, Juiz, or again, how to pronounce her name. Actually, is that French? Maybe she's French. I know the characters are all spread out from other countries, which I do really like. I think that's kind of cool, actually, just because it adds for a much more large like story, like for when the characters are all over the place. And I don't mean that as like, oh, it's diverse, it's crazy, we need more like this. I think it's just interesting that you have all these characters scattered around the world, because if you're playing something that is worldwide, I feel like it just makes sense to have characters from all over the place. It just reminds me of, if you don't do it, it reminds me of like stuff in like Bleach, when you have like, oh yeah, it's all over the world, but you're mostly just like, okay, we're gonna stick to like this area of Japan, just this area of Japan. I was always just like, well, what's going on with like this stuff all over the world? Like, what's going on with all the other like hollows and afterlives? Is it just Japan? And we got a little bit of stuff with like we obviously have like the Quincy and stuff like that, but I guess it'd be more of like if it was set with the Fullbring guys, because they were all over the place, and that's kind of how I'm getting with these guys. But obviously theirs is much more focused on them, and not just the unfortunate case of the Fullbringers that just got fodderized. But anyway, the chapter ends with Izumo, I almost said her name wrong again. She just like kind of rushes up. She's getting ready to use her power, because we know her power, it also depends on how much like contact she's making on a person that she, and like how much they care about. Like she has like both a physical touch to him, and like more of like how her emotional attachment to said individual is when she's using it. So she rushes in, she kind of like opens up her shirt, she like switches her I think her tie around so she can tie, kind of just like lasso onto him, and then just like grabs onto him in the hopes that she can use her power to unlock this dude and hopefully take him down. Like I said, I'm guessing at least one more chapter, maybe two more of this, and then we'll probably get back to the main story. But I'm enjoying just seeing them all just all of them operate and just be within this fight. And Izumo as well, because I like seeing her, able to perform. I'm enjoying that. I really liked thinking about how her character, she's not like a good fighter yet. She can't really fight on her own, but she's still trying. And I do really like that. I like that she's putting in effort, and she's making clear like strides throughout each little piece of the story, and she's figuring out what she can and can't do as it goes on. I think that's just fun, because she, out of all of them, is the only one that's not like combat orientated, so she's got to figure it out. All these other guys have had who knows how long to figure out how to use their powers and incorporate them into combat, but she's still learning. So I think that's just kind of fun when you have her around all these other like really skilled guys, and she's just doing what she can. But anyway, other than that, comment below, thumbs up the video, press the like button, subscribe button, and check out my other videos. But other than that, I appreciate everyone who's already subscribed, and thank you all for listening.